all kinds of Hare Krishna Arav, Hare Krishna Ryan, Hare Krishna Brajaras Bhavana, Hare Krishna Chaitanya Nitai Nam, Hare Krishna Part, Hare Krishna Akshaj, Hare Krishna Maitali, Hare Krishna Riyan, Hare Krishna Abba, Hare Krishna Akshita, Hare Krishna Keshav. Wow, we got all the stars are here. Hare Krishna Maya, Vivan is back, Madhuri Saki's here. And Manhar, who did I miss? It's hard to keep up. Vanchakoptabhishya Kripasindave Vichapatitanam Pavanibhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Happy day before Radhashtami. Unless you happen to be in some obscure time zone where it's already Radhashtami. How have things been going here on Youth Jam? I'm sorry I missed a couple. I think I've a couple.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, it's been going well. We've had almost weekly programs except on Janmashtami but it's so happy to have all of you here. Thank you so much for joining us. I'll be sending a few links in the chat if you'd like to invite anyone, or if you want to look at any resources we have, or sign up for a 5-minute talk in the future. And Marge, is it okay if we open it up to nominating someone for a prayer?
What a great idea.
Okay, I'll be sending the prayer format in the chat as well. And if anyone would like to nominate someone for a prayer. I nominate Parth.
My dear Sri Radha Kalachandji, if you so desire, please make this youth jam successful and make everybody learn something and take away something from this youth jam. Thank you for considering my request.
Thank you so much. And Maharaj, I'll hand it back to you now.
Okay. I'm manifesting. This is a very important assembly for several reasons. One is that one of the main stays of devotional service is hearing and chanting in groups. And Satam prasangam amabhirya sambido bhavanti hrit karana rasayana kata taj joshanad ashu apabargavartmani shradaratir bhakti anukramishati describes the benefits of doing this. And it says that in the company of those who are eager to hear about Krishna, you'll hear topics about Krishna. And from that, the sound vibration enters the ears, into the heart, and it literally lifts one above the material world, which is described as pavarga, which means that those who hear and chant, as all of you do regularly, are on the path of apavarga, which means being freed from the miserable material world. And Shraddha Ratir Bhaktir Anukramishati, step by step, Anukrama means one step after another. Those who engage in this process attain ever more elevated levels of relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that's a worthy cause, or the most worthy cause. So thank you very much, everyone, for keeping the transcendental vibration going. And if I understand correctly, you've been starting with a chapter, and from what I've understood, we're still doing chapter 10 between verses 1 and 21. And so I'll just let whomever's the organizer apportion the verses for whom everyone's. Are you doing that part?
Sure, Marge. If we can get a few volunteers to read the verses, if you can raise your hand, we can do 4 to 5 verses each. Okay. Marge, you can begin.
Okay. So which do you want, 4 or 5?
Sorry, we can do 5 verses each.
Okay. Shri Bhagavan Bhuya eva mahabaho Shinu me paramam vacha Yatteham priyamanaya Vakshami hitakamyaya Nami vidu suraganaha Prabhavam namaharshayaha Ahamadir hi devanam Maharshinam cha sarvashaha Yo mam ajambanadhin cha Vete loka maheshwaram Asamudha samartyeshu Sarvapapai pramuchite Buddhir jnanam asammoha Shama satyam dhamma shamaha Sukham tukam bhavo bhavo Bhayam cha bhayameva cha Ahimsa samata tushtis Tapodanam yasho yashaha Bhavanti bhava bhutanam Matta eva pratagvita.
महर्षयः सप्त पूर्वे चत्वारो मनवस्तथा मद्भावा मानसा जात येषां लोक इमा प्रजाः एतां विभूतिं योगं च मम यो वेत्ति तत्त्वतः सो विकल्पेन योगेन युज्यते नात्र संशयः अहं सर्वस्य प्रभवो मत्तः सर्वं प्रवर्तते इति मत्वा भजन्ते मां बुद्धा भावसमन्विताः मच्चित्ता मद्गतप्राणा बोधयन्तः परस्परं कथयन्तश्च मां नित्यं तुष्यन्ति च रमन्ति च तेषां सततयुक्तानां भजतां प्रीतिपूर्वकं ददामि बुद्धियोगं तं येन मामुपयान्ति ते
तेषामेवानुकम्पार्थम् अहमज्ञानजं तमः नाशामि आत्मभावस्तु ज्ञानदीपेन भास्वता अर्जुन उवाच परं ब्रह्म परं धाम पवित्रं परमं भवान् पुरुषं शाश्वतं दिव्यम् आदिदेवमजं विभुम् अहोस्त्वं ऋषयः सर्वे देवर्षिस्तथा आसितो देवलाव्या सर्वमेतदृतं मन्ये यन्मां वदसि केशव नहि ते भगवन् व्यक्तिं विदुर्देव न दानवः स्वयमेवात्मनात्मानं वेत्ता त्वं पुरुषोत्तम भूतभावनभूतेश देवदेव जगत्पते
वक्तुम् अर्हस्य शेषेण दिव्यह्यात्मा विभूतयः याभिर्विभूतिभिर्लोकान् इमांस्त्वं व्याप्य तिष्ठसि कथं विद्यामहं योगिंस्त्वां सदा परिचिन्तयन् केषु च भावेषु चिन्त्योऽसि भगवन्मया विस्तरेणात्मनो योगं विभूतिं च जनार्दन भूयः कथय तृप्तिर्हि शृण्वतो नास्ति मे मृतम् श्रीभगवानुवाच हन्त ते कथयिष्यामि दिव्यह्यात्मा विभूतयः प्राधान्यतः कुरु श्रेष्ठ नास्त्यन्तो विस्तरस्य मे अहम् आत्मा गुडाकेश सर्वभूताशयस्थितः अहम् आदिश्च मध्यं च भूतानामन्तमेव च आदित्यानामहं विष्णुर्ज्योतिषां रविरंशुमान् मरीचिर्मरुतामस्मि नक्षत्राणामहं शशि
Thank you everyone for reading. We can start again with the translations. So we can do 3 verses each.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "Listen again, O mighty armed Arjuna, because you are my dear friend. For your benefit, I shall speak to you further, giving knowledge that is better than what I have already explained. Neither the hosts of demigods nor the great sages know my origin or opulences, for in every respect I am the source of the demigods and sages. He who knows me as the unborn, as the beginningless, as the supreme Lord of all the worlds, he only undiluted among men is freed from all sins."
Intelligence, knowledge, freedom from doubt and delusion, forgiveness, truthfulness, control of the senses, control of the mind, happiness and distress, birth, death, fear, fearlessness, non-violence, equanimity, satisfaction, austerity, charity, fame, and infamity. All these various qualities of living beings are created by me alone. The 7 great sages, and before them the 4 other great sages, and the Manus, come from me, born from my mind, and all the living beings populating the various planets descend from them.
Rian, you can go ahead.
One who is factually convinced of this opulence and mystic power of mine engages in unalloyed devotional service. Of this there is no doubt. I am the source of all spiritual and material worlds. Everything emanates from me. The wise who perfectly know this engage in my devotional service and worship me with all their hearts. The thoughts of my pure devotees dwell in me. Their lives are fully devoted to my service, and they derive great satisfaction and bliss from always enlightening one another and conversing about me.
To those who are constantly devoted to serving me with love, I give the understanding by which they can come to me. To show them special mercy, I, dwelling in their hearts, destroy with the shining lamp of knowledge the darkness born of ignorance. Arjuna said, "You are the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the ultimate abode, the purest, the absolute truth. You are the eternal, transcendental, original person, the unborn, the greatest. All the great sages such as Narada, Asita, Devala, and Vyasa confirmed this truth about you, and now you yourself are declaring it to me."
O Krishna, I totally accept as truth all that you have told me. Neither the demigods nor the demons, O Lord, can understand your personality. Indeed, you alone know yourself by your own internal potency. O Supreme Person, origin of all, Lord of all beings, God of gods, Lord of the universe. Please tell me in detail of your divine opulences by which you pervade all of these worlds.
O Krishna, O Supreme Mystic, how shall I constantly think of you, and how shall I know you? In what various forms are you to be remembered, O Supreme Personality of Godhead? O Janardana, again, please describe in detail the mystic power of your opulences. I am never satiated in hearing about you, for the more I hear, the more I want to taste the nectar of your words. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "Yes, I will tell you of my splendorous manifestations, but only of those which are prominent, O Arjuna, for my opulence is limitless."
Maitli, you can go ahead.
I am the super soul or origin seated in the hearts of all the living entities. I am the beginning, the middle, and the end of all beings. Of the Adityas, I am Vishnu. Of light, I am the radiant sun. Of the Maruts, I am Marich. And among the stars, I am the moon.
Thank you, everyone, for participating in today's chat reading. Marge, if you would like to continue with the... Oh, sorry.
Look at the purport,
Yes.
the verse where Krishna mentions infamy. All these states of being come from me. Says here, intelligence, knowledge, freedom from doubt and delusion, forgiveness, truthfulness, control of the senses, control of the mind, happiness and distress, birth, death, fear, fearlessness, nonviolence, equanimity, satisfaction, austerity, charity, fame, and infamy. All these various qualities of living beings are created by me alone. And Prabhupada writes the following in the purport. The different qualities of living entities, be they good or bad, are all created by Krishna, and they are described here. Intelligence refers to the power to analyze things in their proper perspective, and knowledge refers to understanding what is spirit and what is matter. Ordinary knowledge obtained by a university education pertains only to matter, and it is not accepted here as knowledge. Knowledge means knowing the distinction between spirit and matter. In modern education, there is no knowledge about spirit. There is simply taking care of the material elements and bodily needs. Therefore, academic knowledge is not complete. Asammoha, freedom from doubt and delusion, can be achieved when one is not hesitant and when he understands the transcendental philosophy. Slowly but surely, he becomes free from bewilderment. Nothing should be accepted blindly. Everything should be accepted with care and caution. Shama, tolerance and forgiveness should be practiced. One should be tolerant and excuse the minor offenses of others. Satyam, truthfulness, means that facts should be presented as they are for the benefit of others. Facts should not be misrepresented. According to social conventions, it is said that one can speak the truth only when it is palatable to others. But that is not truthfulness. The truth should be spoken in a straightforward way so that others will understand actually what the facts are. If a man is a thief and if people are warned that he is a thief, that is truth. Although sometimes the truth is unpalatable, one should not refrain from speaking it. Truthfulness demands that the facts be presented as they are for the benefit of others. That is the definition of truth. Control of the senses means that the senses should not be used for unnecessary personal enjoyment. Somebody else can read.
Control of the senses means that the senses should not be used for unnecessary personal enjoyment. There is no prohibition against meeting the proper needs of the senses, but unnecessary sense enjoyment is detrimental for spiritual advancement. Therefore, the senses should be restrained from unnecessary use. Similarly, one should restrain the mind from unnecessary thoughts. And that is called sama. One should not spend one's time pondering over earning money. That is a misuse of the thinking power. The mind should be used to understand the prime necessity of human beings, and that should be presented authoritatively. The power of thought should be developed in association with persons who are authorities in the scriptures, saintly persons and spiritual masters, and those whose thinking is highly developed. Sukha, pleasure or happiness, should always be in that which is favorable for the cultivation of spiritual knowledge of Krishna consciousness. And similarly, that which is painful or which causes distress is that which is unfavorable for the cultivation of Krishna consciousness. Anything favorable for the development of Krishna consciousness should be accepted, and anything unfavorable should be rejected.
Bhava, birth, should be understood to refer to the body. As far as the soul is concerned, there's neither birth nor death, that we have discussed in the beginning of Bhagavad Gita. Birth and death apply to one's embodiment in the material world. Fear is due to worrying about the future. A person in Krishna consciousness has no fear because by his activities he is sure to go back to the spiritual sky, back home, back to Godhead. Therefore, his future is very bright. Others, however, do not know what their future holds. They have no knowledge of what the next life holds. So therefore, they are in constant anxiety. If you want to get free from anxiety, then the best course is to understand Krishna and be situated always in Krishna consciousness. In that way, we will be free from all fear. In the Srimad Bhagavatam 11.2.37, it is stated, Bhayam Dvit ya bhinash bhiniveshat shayat. Fear is caused by our absorption in the illusory energy. But those who are free from the illusory energy, those who are confident that they are not the material body, that they are spiritual parts of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and who are therefore engaged in the transcendental service of the Supreme Godhead, have nothing to fear. Their future is very bright. This fear is a condition of persons who are not in Krishna consciousness. Abhayam, fearlessness, is possible only for one in Krishna consciousness.
Ahimsa, non-violence, means that one should not do anything which will put others into misery or confusion. Material activities that are promised by so many politicians, sociologists, philanthropists, do not produce very good results because the politicians and philanthropists have no transcendental vision. They do not know what is actually beneficial for human society. Ahimsa means that people should be trained in such a way that the full utilization of the human body can be achieved. The human body is meant for spiritual realization. So any movement or any commissions which do not further that end commit violence on the human body. That which furthers the future spiritual happiness of the people in general is called non-violence.
Samat, equanimity, refers to the freedom from attachment and aversion. To be very much attached or to be very much detached is not the best. This material world should be accepted without attachment or aversion. That which is favorable for prosecution, Krishna consciousness, should be accepted. That which is unfavorable should be rejected. That is called samat, equanimity. A person in Krishna consciousness has nothing to reject and nothing to accept save in terms of its usefulness in the prosecution of Krishna consciousness.
Pushti, satisfaction, means that one should not be eager to gather more and more material goods by unnecessary activity. One should be satisfied with whatever is obtained by the grace of the Supreme Lord. That is called satisfaction. Tapas means austerity or penance. There are many rules and regulations in the Vedas which apply here, like rising early in the morning and taking a bath. Sometimes it is very troublesome to rise early in the morning, but whatever voluntary trouble one may suffer in this way is called penance. Similarly, there are prescriptions for fasting on certain days of the month. One may not be inclined to practice such fasting, but because of his determination to make advancement in the science of Krishna consciousness, he should accept such bodily troubles when they are recommended. However, one should not fast unnecessarily or against Vedic injunctions. One should not fast for some political purpose that is described in Bhagavad Gita as fasting is ignorance, and anything done in ignorance or passion does not lead to spiritual advancement. Everything done in the mode of goodness does advance one, however, and fasting done in terms of the Vedic injunctions enriches one in spiritual knowledge.
As far as charity is concerned, one should give 50% of his earnings to some good cause. And what is a good cause? It is that which is conducted in terms of Krishna consciousness. That is not only a good cause, but the best cause. Because Krishna is good, his cause is also good. Thus, charity should be given to a person who is engaged in Krishna consciousness. According to the Vedic literature, it is enjoined that charity should be given to Brahmanas. The practice is still followed, although not very nicely in terms of the Vedic injunction, but still the injunction is that charity should be given to Brahmanas. Why? Because they're engaged in higher cultivation of spiritual knowledge. Brahmana is supposed to devote his whole life to understand Brahman. Janatiti Brahmana. One who knows Brahman is called Brahmana. Thus, charity is offered to the Brahmanas because they are always engaged in higher spiritual service and have no time to earn their livelihood. In the Vedic literature, charity is also to be awarded to one in the renounced order of life, the sannyasi. Sannyasi the sannyasis beg from door to door, not for money, but for missionary purposes. The system is that they go from door to door to awaken the householders from the slumber of ignorance. Because the householders are engaged in the family affairs and have forgotten their actual purpose in life, awakening them in Krishna and awakening their Krishna consciousness is the business of the sannyasis to go as beggars to the householders and encourage them to be Krishna conscious. As it is said in the Vedas, one should awake and achieve what is due him in this human form of life. This knowledge and method is distributed by the sannyasis. Hence, charity is to be given to the renouncer of life, to the brahmanas, and similarly, good causes, not to any whimsical cause. Hare Krishna.
Yasya fame should be according to Lord Chaitanya, who said that a man is famous when he is when he is known as a great devotee. That is real fame. If one has become a great man in Krishna consciousness and it is known, then he is truly famous. One does not have such fame is infamous.
All these qualities are manifest throughout the universe, in human society, and in the society of the demigods. There are many forms of humanity on other planets, and these qualities are there. Now, for one who wants to advance in Krishna consciousness, Krishna creates all these qualities, but the person develops himself within. One who engages in the devotional service of the Supreme Lord develops all the good qualities as arranged by the Supreme Lord.
Of whatever we find, good or bad, the origin is Krishna. Nothing can manifest itself in this material world which is not in Krishna. That is knowledge. Although we know that things are differently situated, we should realize that everything flows from Krishna.
Does anybody have any reflections from what you just heard? Reflection means anything that's stuck in your mind. Yes, Rajaras Bhavana.
In connection to how devotees feel no fear, I was thinking about this verse from chapter 7 of the first canto. Yasyam ve shruyamanayam Krishne paramapurushe bhaktir utpadyate pumsa shokamoha bhayapaha. Simply by giving oral reception to this Vedic literature, the feeling for loving devotional service to Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, sprouts up at once to extinguish the fire of lamentation, illusion, and fearfulness. And why these three are really important is because lamentation is how we feel negatively about the past, illusion is how we feel about the present, and then fear is for the future. And so Prabhupada also mentioned that fear of the future.
What's the verse number?
177.
What a great verse. Thank you. Oh, look, there's a lot. Chaitanya Nitainam. Mineche.
Hare Krishna. The part of the purport that I was reading, I think it had Prabhupada mentioned that people should not fast for political reasons. And recently, I think my grandparents, they were listening to something about because it was Independence Day for India recently, and there's this whole glorification of Gandhi and everything. And I was thinking because of that verse, like he did the fasting and boycotting salt and all those sort of products that the British had in efforts to get independence for India. And I think, I don't remember which verse it was, but there was a purport in Prahlad Maharaj's prayers, that chapter from Srimad Bhagavatam as well, where Prabhupada wrote all these freedom fighters, so-called freedom fighters, they basically lost all the popularity and influence and everything that they had gained throughout their life as, these great historical figures. And Prahlad Maharaj was saying in response to that how like he gathered all these experiences and he saw his father also gaining these influence and wealth and power, but he saw that how they would immediately lose that after they were finished. So that was coming to mind when I read especially fasting for political purposes. I think that only advances the idea that you're going to be finished soon.
Good points. Arav.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
When I was thinking from this purport was that in the beginning they said not all these are good qualities. Some of these qualities are like distress. Seems when we hear distress, it's like what was something bad happened to me. But then we see people when distress comes, when devotees get stressed, Krishna comes closer to them. They find it as a way to come closer to Krishna. So all these qualities are ways we can relate to Krishna and become closer to him because they're from him originally.
Great point. Quote a verse to support your position. Atenu susamikshamano punjana eva kritam vipakam hridvagvapurvya virinam namaste jiveta yomukti padesadaya bhav. Or how about Yasyaham anagrinami harisheta danam shanai tato janam tajantyasya swajana tukatukitam. Do you know either of those two, Arav?
No, I'm trying to remember. I'm trying to memorize verses from the prayers that Kunti Rani said to Lord Krishna. Right now.
Yeah. We can find one from there, right?
Yes, yeah. Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, 8th chapter.
Okay. Part?
Hare Krishna Maharaj. So one of my takeaways from the purport was that it was talking about that you should not be eager to gather more and more of material goods because you should be always satisfied in whatever you're doing for the Supreme Lord or Krishna. And I really like that because that we should not unnecessarily just be like, oh, give me, I'm greedy, right? You should not be like that. I think that I really like that whatever you're doing, even if you're honoring prasadam, you should always think for Krishna first. Yeah.
Very nice. We should start a coalition called the Think of Krishna First Coalition. TKFC. Fantastic. And Arav's jumping back frisky. He's got a verse now. Ready to spring he is. Okay, go ahead, Arav.
Hare Krishna. It's Srimad Bhagavatam 1.8.25. Pipada santuta shashvat tatra jagat guru bhavato darshanam yat syad apunar bhavadarshanam. I wish that all those calamities would happen again and again so that we could see you again and again. For seeing you means that we will no longer see repeated births and deaths. This is what Kunti said to Krishna after they're getting so many calamities, like getting kicked out of the house, all of this. And she was just happy that Krishna was coming to save them again and again.
Way to go, Arav. Good command of Shastra. Well done. Vivan.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. So I was listening to Parts Reflection and I immediately thought of a verse. And the verse that I thought of was Isha Upanishad. I don't really remember the verse number, but I remember the translation. It says that you should be satisfied whatever quota that you have, and the rest of whatever you do have with your quota, you should serve Krishna with that.
Okay, Madhuri give us the verse.
The first one that comes to mind is Patram Pushpam Phalam Toyam.
Oh, Sri Upanishad.
Oh,
Oh, he's showing you the verse now. That's no fair.
Ishavasyam Idam Sarvam
Okay, go ahead.
Jagatyam Jagatina Tyaktina Bunjita Magvada Kasya Svidhanam. This verse says that everything that is within the universe, okay, I'll read the translation. Everything animate or inanimate that is within the universe is controlled and owned by the Lord. One should therefore only accept those things necessary for himself which are set aside as his quota, and one should not accept other things knowing well to whom they belong.
And which part of it says what Vivan was saying?
The part that says one should keep only those things necessary for himself, or the quota part.
Yeah.
And not, yeah.
What's the Sanskrit there?
Tyaktina.
Yeah, tektena means to put something aside, right? And then bunjita means that's what you should accept. Tena, tyaktena, bunjita. Whatever is given by him, that you should say accepted your quota. Otherwise, don't steal other people's stuff. Wow, such great points. What a purport. That was an epic purport. One of the longest ones in the Gita. Wouldn't you say? Amazing. Okay, let's keep the variety of hearing chanting going. And what would you suggest next, those of you who are running the show?
Arjun, may be smart to start the 24 gurus since about 3:45 now.
Okay, let's start the 24 gurus. I'll give a short segment on that. Purity of water. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Nena Tasmai Shri Gurave. For context, Maharaj Yadu was going through the wilderness and he met a sage. And he spoke to the sage and realized that the sage was self-realized. And then he asked, how did you become self-realized? And the sage was known as the Avaduta Brahmana, said, I have 24 gurus. And Yadu Maharaj said, where are they? He said, oh, they're all around us. And King Yadu was confused because he didn't see any other people. But then the Avaduta began to refer to various landmarks and phenomena of the world, interactions he'd seen between other people, and interactions between animals. And each one of those gave him a valuable lesson that brought him to the stage of self-realization. This is Krishna teaching this. He told this story at 24 Gurus. Does anybody remember who he told it to? This is for 30 points. You can trade them in at your local gift shop.
Was it Uddhava?
That's right. It's a good supposition because that's what a lot of the 11th canto is about. It's Krishna teaching Uddhava. So he taught him telling the story about the Avaduta Brahman. And when it comes to water, he saw that a water is like sadhu, pure devotee, because he saw in water three qualities that he also sees in sadhus. So, does anybody know one of them before you turn any slides? Hey, don't turn the slides yet, because then you give it away. Okay, one of them is purification. Does anybody here ever touch water for purification? If not, then warn me before you come over. So water purifies. It's one of the purifying agents of the world. And in doing puja, we do achmana, which involves touching water and mantra. And so by touching a sage, by touching a pure devotee, one gets purified. Now comes the hard part. Not hard, it's easy. But what are a few references from Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, or any Vaishnava Shastra that say that one gets purified by coming in contact with devotees? I see the wheels turning, click, click, click. Now, it's one thing to memorize verses, another one to be able to access them. That's why these discussions are helpful, because every time you go through this exercise, the neurons that fire together wire together, and then next time you'll have it on the tip of your brain. So the brain's adaptable. It's got plasticity. Anybody know a verse that says when you come in contact with devotees, you get purified? I know one. You want me to say where it is? Go ahead, Arif. Your turn.
Hare Krishna. I think I know one from Chaitanya Charitamrita. There's a few from there. Like Sadhu Sangha, Sarva Shastra Kai, Lava Matri, Sadhu Sangha, Sarva Siddhi Hai.
Just give us the approximate translation.
So when you associate with sadhus for even a moment, and Lava Matri, I think, is even for 1/11th of a second, you will get the knowledge of all the scriptures, be fulfilled.
Sarva Siddhi Hoy, you get perfection. Nice. Madhuri Saki gave you the link, so anyone could look at it. I'm going to look at it. Oh, you gave another verse. O king, a saintly person is just, oh, that's the verse itself, I see. Okay. So there's two other qualities that he saw within the saint. Nice work, Arav. That's a good verse. Sadhu Sangha Sarva Shastra Koi. All the Shastras say this. Lava Matra Sadhu Sangha Sarva Siddhi Hoy. Just by a short duration of association with sadhu, you can get purified. In the Gita Mahatmya, the verses you'll find near the end of the introduction of the Bhagavad Gita, there is a statement about how the Ganges can purify after long exposure, but just by briefly coming in contact with sadhu, one gets purified. Okay, let's say another quality of a sadhu that the Avadutta Brahman said was, just as water is pleasing to hear. For instance, if you hear a babbling brook, has anybody here ever heard a babbling brook? Does anybody here know what I'm talking about? Maitali, did you ever hear a babbling brook? Did you hear a babbling brook?
Yes.
Where?
At ISV when we read Krishna book.
Oh no, a babbling brook. You know, a stream. That's a brook. You thought I said a book?
No, I think we've played Babbling Brook sometimes when we read
Oh,
Krishna
now I
book.
know what you're talking about. I take it all back. We played it. We You've got such a good memory. We played in the background of Babbling Brook when we
Yes.
were Krishna book. That's brilliant. Okay, it's pleasing to hear. And so it's nice to hear what devotees have to say, because it's always about Krishna. And the third is that water is transparent. In fact, it might even magnify what's on the other side. If you ever looked into a clear pond, anybody here look into a clear pond? Vivan, I know you have, you guys go all over the world camping, looking at stuff. Did you ever see a little pond that was so clear you could see the rocks at the bottom?
Yes.
Maharaj.
Where was that pond? I'm going to go there. Tell me where it is.
There's many Maharaj.
Where? Name one.
All over the world, even in Dallas. Maharaj, you should come to Dallas. There's many. There's one called White Rock Lake.
Okay. Can you see to the bottom?
Yes, Maharaj.
I'm used to seeing those way up in the mountains where the water's really clear. If you go backpacking up into the wilderness, has anybody ever done that? We should all go up into the wilderness sometime. Sometimes the lakes, the ponds are so clear you can see everything at the bottom. So that's what the Avadhuta said about the sadhu. Makes the world transparent. See through the sadhu what the distinction between reality and illusion. Okay, now the next thing you talked about was fire. Fire is ubiquitous and fire purifies. It's the next slide. Glowing with austerities. I'm going to keep going. And this one, fire burns everything to ashes, even contaminated substances. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Yatai damsi samino nir basmasa kurute Arjuna, that, oh Arjuna, the fire, Gyanagni sarvakarmana basmasa kurute tata. He says that fire can burn anything to ashes. In fact, it could burn a whole city to ashes. Who can name a city that got burned to the ashes? This is where your American history comes into
Right.
play.
Chicago?
Yeah. Where else? San Francisco. 1904 earthquake. Fires broke out, and because of the earthquake, fire department couldn't use the water. The whole place burned down. So anyway, Krishna says all karma can be burnt to ashes by knowledge. And this was a point that was realized by the Avadhuta Brahmin when he observed fire. And the next one is one of my favorites. Here's a lesson from the hawk. So one day, the Avadhuta Brahmin noticed that a Karari hawk was flying up into the air and is holding onto a mouse. And two bigger Karari hawks assailed the smaller one and said, "Give it up or die." And the small Karari hawk dropped the mouse and flew away to safety. And from that, the Avadhuta Brahmin learned detachment, when to let go of things. Now I'd like, if you wouldn't mind, Akshita, can you give any commentary on that would relate to our lives? And if you can quote any verse or allude to any ideas from Shastra, we'll give you extra points.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, I don't have any verses on the top of my head. It might take me some time to think of a verse. But yeah, this at least this is a good lesson to learn, because we shouldn't be attached to materialistic things like, I mean, Evie, you should be detached from anything because that could avoid you from going onto your spiritual path properly, and it won't allow you to focus on Krishna, practice bhakti, and your mind will be contaminated. And I think in the purport today that we read, there was a small section that talked about that. I might have to go and look back on it, but it said that we shouldn't keep unnecessary things in our mind. I can go look back to it, but
Wow, that's good. You got such a good memory. Thank you, Akshita. Well done. Please go back and look, and you can pop back in if you find it. I think you did a great job. Saki Vrinda, anything else you can say about the lesson of the hawk dropping the mouse?
Thank Krishna Maharaj. I also agree with Akshita. I also think that it's good to keep your mind only devoted onto Krishna and always I think we should like deviate our minds from any material things and just focus on diverting them into spiritual things, just like serving Krishna. Like, for example, if we like eating food, we can first make it for Krishna and offer it and make it prasadam, and we can just divert our actions to Krishna consciousness then.
Very nice. Thank you very much, Saki Vrinda. Fantastic. Anybody else like to add to that? Just the whole, it seems so simple. Brajaras Bhavana, please go ahead.
Sorry, I can't raise my hand when I screen share, so I had to do it manually. Something I was thinking about was it's almost like he's prioritizing, where he prioritizes his life first and then the mouse, and that's what led him to drop the mouse. And then it also brought me back to that purport where Prabhupada said that one shouldn't be too averse as well as too attached. And so it's not like he was still attached to his life. And so he kept that part. But he chose what was, okay to let go. And so there was a balance over there too.
Yeah, nicely put. Prioritize. Have you ever seen a situation? Akshita's back. Go for it, Akshita.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Yes, in the verse that we read in the purport today, it says that there is no prohibition against meeting the proper needs of the senses, but unnecessary sense enjoyment is detrimental for spiritual advance.
Right. Good point. It's a matter of balance there too, isn't it? Yeah, and I was just curious if you can remember any times, any of us, that or it's happened to you, where you didn't prioritize correctly. And maybe you held on because of a sense of anger or greed. You held on to something unnecessarily, and then it ended up being a bigger sacrifice that you had to endure because you didn't prioritize correctly. Like I've seen people in public, especially on airplanes, get into arguments over who gets to put their bag where. Just a tiny little thing, like somebody just put their bag on the plane, somebody else wants to move it in the overhead bin, and the other person becomes annoyed, and then they start an argument, and then it can turn into something where people really regret that they had succumbed to anger or something like that. And this idea of prioritizing, is it really worth it? And then if you become sagely and you look at the world and think, well, what's my real purpose here? Maybe I'll prioritize what's more important and just avoid altogether these pitfalls of greed and anger and so forth. I'll just tell you in context, I gave a talk, maybe it was this exact same talk at Intel. That's back in the old days when we used to go in the building and they gave us a room, a conference room, and we talked to 100 or so people as a special presentation. After COVID, we went and started doing it. It went on to Zoom and it's still doing it there. But I had given this talk about 24 gurus, and I had mentioned drop the mouse, and it resonated with the employees there. And it also has a double meaning because, like I have a mouse here. And so somehow people thought of, dropping the mouse, and they thought of the electronic mouse. And the next time I came in, there were some enthusiasts there for my next talk. And I was wondering why they were smiling at me because I don't remember everybody I see. When I walked in and I go, "How are you?" And they all went at the same time, they went, "Drop the mouse." And I just thought it's an easy mantra to remember. When we remember the Karari Hawk, and he had this moment where his life was being threatened. And he could have then welled up with a sense of chivalry and saying, "I'm going to fight for this," and been killed by these or seriously injured. But why? And so I liked what Brajaras Bhavana said about prioritizing. Better to stay alive, fight another day, and preserve your life so you can keep doing devotional service. So one of my favorites, drop the mouse. Anybody else have any reflections on the mouse episode of this presentation? Part.
I was remembering this analogy I've heard before, where if you're stuck on a plane that's falling, like the engines blew out, are you gonna go run, grab your phone and your wallet, or are you gonna go run and grab the parachute? Even though your wallet might have thousands of dollars in it, every single person would go to the parachute because what's the point of having money if you're dead? And similarly, what's the point of living if you're not with Krishna? So better go to Krishna first. It's kind of what I was saying about.
Let's see some money if you're dead. I like that. Nice. Let's see if we can do one more. We had drop the mouse, and then comes, what's the next slide? Ooh, lesson from the arrow maker. Now this is good, especially for japa. So the story of the arrow maker, the Avaduta Brahmana noticed that the arrow maker, and the arrow maker was sitting in his shop in the town, and he was making wooden arrows by hand. And to make sure they were perfectly straight, which is necessary for a straight shooting arrow, he was fully concentrated on creating it the way he had been taught by his ancestors. Just around that time, while he was working on an arrow, the king and his retinue came through the town. Now, king has fanfare along with his travels, and there were jugglers and dancers and bands playing and military and a variety of animals. You can only imagine the cacophony that arose from that, the clamor and the pageantry and the visual variety. And after the king had passed through the town, one of the friends of the arrow maker came to running up to him in his shop, and he said, "Did you see the king? Did you see the king?" And the arrow maker said, "King? I didn't see any king." Nor did he hear the king. His retinue go by. And from this incident, the Avaduta Brahman realized the power of one-minded focus. So many places where Vyavasayatmika Buddhir Eki Hakurunandana, as an example in the Gita, Krishna says, be one-minded. And in the Bhagavatam, Tasmat Ekena Manasa Bhagavan Sattvatam Bhadid. Therefore, with one-minded attention. So real one-mindedness means you can be so focused on one thing that even though there's clamor around you, there may be noise, but you can tune it out and be aware of what you're doing. So in japa, there's this What are the recommendations to be one-minded with the mantra? But what if there's noise or activity going on around you? Well, if you're one-minded like the arrow maker, you can be totally fixed on your task at hand, which is chanting Hare Krishna. Comments, reactions, emojis. What do you have? What did you feel about this lesson learned, or questions, comments? 3, 2, 1. Manhar.
Yeah, Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna Manhar. Manhar means one whose mind is stolen away by Krishna.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how does that relate to the arrow maker?
The arrow maker, he was focusing on the arrow so much that his mind was like stolen basically by the arrow because he was so focused on it.
Well done, Manhar. I once heard from, yes, Brajaras Bhavana.
You can finish your point, Maharaj. I can go right after.
Oh, just that I heard once there was a youth bus tour, and the leader told me that the boys and girls got out of the Grand Canyon, but they were so busy talking to one another that they didn't see the Grand Canyon. Anyway, you've heard that from me before. Okay, go ahead, Brajaras Bhavana.
I was thinking of this idea of focus, especially when it comes to sports, where when you lose your focus, that is what really defines who wins or loses the games, especially at that high level, because they both are so focused. It's like they're opposing each other for so long, but then when that focus dips from one side, it's so apparent, and it's so visibly apparent, and it's so destructive for that other team, where just like they won the game because they played good for 5 minutes. And so like this happens a lot, and I think it's a good reminder for us that when we lose our focus, it's very, very destructive.
Fantastic. I never heard that before. That's really good. I was thinking about chanting verses. Brahma Samhita is something I've been chanting for a long time, and it generally just comes into my mind what the next verse is. But I notice that if I don't focus, if I take it for granted that it's going to come into my mind, then I think of something else. I worry about somebody else walking in a room. Did they have a seat to sit on? And then I lose my place. What's the next verse and so forth. But I really like what you mentioned about the consequences. That's very interesting. Okay, Arif, go for it.
Hare Krishna. There's one verse from the Bhagavatam, the 11th canto, chapter 23, verse 47. Manovashenye Hyamavam Smadeva Manashanam Yasya Vasham Sameti Bhishmo Hideva Sahasa Sahiyan Yunyad Vashetam Sahideva Devam. So the meaning is all the senses have been under the control of the mind since time immemorial, and the mind himself never comes under the sway of the others. He's stronger than the strongest, and his godlike power is fearsome. Therefore, anyone who can bring the mind under control becomes the master of the senses. So whoever can focus their mind into one thing, for us it's Harinam, Harinam, Harinam Eva Kevalam. We need to focus it into the form of Krishna, the Leela of Krishna, and the holy names of the Lord too. When we focus completely, then we get the results from that.
Nicely done, Arif. Very good. Part.
I had an example that connected what Harav said and what Brajarasabhavana was talking about, where in the 90s, Michael Jordan was really sick to the point where he couldn't stand up, but it was the NBA Finals. So he played in it and he got about 40 points, I think just under that. And at the end of the game, he collapsed and his teammates carried him off the court. But during the game, he was so focused on winning and supporting his team that he was able to persevere even though his senses were letting him down.
Power of focus. Amazing. Akshay.
Hey, Shimara, I was just thinking about a point that I heard from that you said in class about how Krishna and Holy Name are one, and how we should imagine that we're talking to Krishna while we're chanting. So if we're thinking about something else, then like our mind is like wandering, so it'd almost be like we're talking about something else while the other person is talking, like we're like interrupting them. So
Yeah, I
we
like the
should
way you
like
put it. It's very
always
personal.
focus on the Holy Name.
Yeah, definitely. Apply that to a personal situation and you see why it would be offensive when Krishna's present. Thank you very much. Maithili,
Hare Krishna Maharaj. I was just thinking of a verse that connected
can you
to.
move closer to your mic? I turned up my volume to the max and you're still a little bit low.
Can you hear me now, Maharaj? Or is it? Oh,
Still a little low.
is that better?
Yes.
Okay. I was just thinking of a verse that connected to really what everybody said. I think it was Bhagavad Gita, 2.41. I think it was Vyavasayatmika Buddhi Ekeha Kurunandana Bahushaka Hyanantascha Buddhayo Vyavasayin, where it was talking about uh like those who are like very determined and have a purpose, and like their aim is one and they're very focused on the goal, and then those who are like distracted and not determined, they're very distracted. So I think like with japa especially, I feel like we have the tendency to like focus on a lot of other things when we're chanting. So I've been working on that recently to try and focus my mind more when I'm chanting.
How have you been doing that?
Maharaj, I used to wake up in the mornings and try and like chant in my bedroom or something, but now what I do is I try and go downstairs in the morning and chant in front of the DP so I can look at them and chant instead of sitting in my bed or like sitting on the couch in my room or something.
That's really smart. The environment makes a big difference, doesn't it?
Yes, yeah.
I noticed that I always chant better in the japa circle when I'm with other devotees and in front of the deities too. That's excellent. Thank you, Maithili. Keep up the great work. Akshita,
Hare Krishna Maharaj. I just thought of a verse from the 12th chapter. I think it was the second verse. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Maya Vesha Mano Ye Mam Nitya Yukta Upasate Shraddhaya Parayopetas Te Me Yukta Tamamata. I'm pretty sure it says that one who fixes their mind on like the personal form of Krishna with transcendental faith is considered to be the most perfect, if I'm not wrong. But this shows that focusing on Krishna's form is the most important because it keeps your mind fixed on the Lord, so your mind doesn't get distracted by anything else.
yeah. What was the verse you quoted?
Bhagavad Gita 12.2.
And say it again.
Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Maya Vesha Mano Ye Mam Nitya Yukta Upasate Shraddhaya Parayopetas Te Me Yukta Tamamata.
Yeah, there's quite a few like that, isn't there? Like Ananyastintayanto Mam, which means if you absorb your mind in me with no other consideration. And that that is the essence of what the Avadhuta Brahmin learned, is practice for that. Just as far as the function of the mind goes, it is trainable. This is an important, very practical point. We may just think, well, the mind's unruly, I can't bring it into focus. But Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita tells Arjuna, who felt that way, that it was impossible, that by the correct practice and by detachment, one could attain such focus in the practice of controlling the mind. And we also know from those who study the function of the brain have shown that under different circumstances, the brain is more or less effective. For instance, did you know if you don't get enough sleep, then the brain is far less efficient at remembering things? In fact, I just saw yesterday some research about how when people got fewer than 6 hours of sleep a night, then the population that was studied had a downturn. There was a downturn in their test scores because it was the main determining factor that was controlled for in the experiment was sleep. And so the brain doesn't function well when it doesn't get enough sleep. So there are different circumstances under which we may help ourselves by adjusting our environment, as Maitali just said. She goes in a different environment, makes sure she can focus and is not distracted. But the mind can be trained, and also when it's purified and the influence of rajas isn't so prevalent, then the mind becomes more proficient at staying focused on one thing. It's worth the practice, wouldn't you say? And that brings me to the end of my comments on some of the 24 gurus that were mentioned by the Avadhuta Brahmin. And we thank Krishna for giving us these ideas, because if one sharpens one's intelligence, he mentions, then you can see everything that happens in the world, all phenomena, as a lesson given to help us advance in life. Om Tat Sat. Now we have a few minutes left, and I thought it might be nice if we take some reflections. Isn't that you have to recite anything, do anything, but we just like to hear how everyone's doing, what's on your mind, and any realizations you've gotten from the summer, or from the end of summer, or from the Janmashtami, or whatever. You might have collected some of your own insights from the world, just as the Avadhuta Brahmin got insights from the wilderness, or wherever he went, even downtown, see the air maker. What kind of thoughts or revelations or complaints? Do you have any complaints? You can mention them now. 3, 2, 1. Anapayani Bhakti. I'll try Abba.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. I didn't really have any reflections. One thing I wanted to share was how much more I'm thinking about association of devotees now that my college has started, and like I'm farther away from our temple. So coming back for Janmashtami, like Radhashtami, definitely makes me feel more grateful for all the devotees association we have here.
Yeah, it's kind of like Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur says, when it's been dark and then the sun comes up, you appreciate sunlight more. Or when you're thirsty, then water is especially tasty. And when you're off in another environment, you come back into the devotional environment, and you really feel it, right?
Yes, touched.
Well, that was nice. Thank you very much for sharing that. Anybody else? Reflections? Sharing means caring. Tell us what you're thinking, seeing, feeling, and what's vexing you. Arif.
Hare Krishna. What I had heard from one person was we were in a Sanskrit class. We were learning the meters in which the verses are sung. So these verses and letters, they get different names and different qualities by Srila Jiva Goswami. He like edited the whole Sanskrit language and he made it Krishna conscious for everybody. So everybody's chanting the names. And then they said for the time when Bhishma was on his bed of arrows and he was saying his last words in the Srimad Bhagavatam to Yudhishthira in front of Krishna and everybody. The chanda was called Pushpitagra. Pushpitagra means like a flower blooming flower. They said in the presence of Krishna that Bhishma didn't feel the pain of the arrows because he was so absorbed in his thought of Krishna. So I just thought that then the speaker told us that the like bed of arrows became like a Pushpitagra and this just reminded me of the focus thing today. He was so absorbed in not in everything except the arrows that he was lying on that he was in fact doing well. He was ready to leave his body and see Krishna in his eternal form.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate how you're absorbing yourself in all these arts, learning meter and Sanskrit, and especially appreciating the way Jiva Goswami made a tedious task going through all the Sanskrit details, learning Sanskrit into a way to remember Krishna for the benefit of everyone. Those acharyas are so thoughtful. Thanks, Arav. Nicely done. Manhar.
Hare Krishna. So, the focus, when you were talking about focus, it reminded me of Arjuna when Dronacharya asked everyone to shoot like the bird, and then Arjuna was focusing on the bird's eye while everyone else was focusing on other things.
It's such a great story. Thanks
Yeah.
for reminding us of that. It's so instructive, isn't it? In fact, didn't he test everybody and he said, what do you see? This and that, this and only until you only see one thing. Yeah, nicely done. Brajaras Bhavana.
I was reflecting on the Harinam yesterday we had in downtown Palo Alto, and this idea of how we're causing this disruption in the city of Palo Alto. In my company's like all hands meeting, they had this value that they put on the poster. It was embrace disruption and like innovation and things like that. And I was just thinking about that with the Harinam, where we're very positively like disrupting this street that's usually, because I've walked down that street before, like when Harinam's not there, and it's so lifeless, and then we just bring so much life into that one little zone, and just if someone were to walk by, it fully disrupts their lives and their entire evening. But it's like, whoa, what's that? And you could really see it on people's faces. Sometimes they'd be like excited or they'd feel very negative towards it, but it would definitely make an impact in some way or the other.
Oh, I love that. That's fantastic. In the context of your company, what is it that they value about that? What does it do for your team or for the individuals on the team to heed that advice of embracing disruption?
I think a lot of it comes from innovation and also how innovation can feel quite disruptive. Right now, I think it's in terms of AI, where there's a lot of new AI technologies coming out, and there's a lot of new processes and systems that everyone can follow that might be better, more efficient, more optimal. And so the idea is, instead of sticking to the old way, you embrace disruption, you go for the new way, which is more innovative and can help everyone succeed.
There's a mantra that we came up with during the pandemic when we were doing our work, which is that workarounds bring turnarounds. And it means staying open to the idea that you don't have it all figured out. Maybe what feels uncomfortable about somebody else's way of doing it could lead to a better idea, better way of doing things. So be open and fluid with that. It's helpful to have these in mind because inevitably we'll come into circumstances that feel uncomfortable for us. And to be able to have a ready mantra that we've already thought about, we've philosophized, where we've explored philosophically and we understand that it's useful to us. And to be able to say, embrace disruption when disruption comes. It's one of the ways not to be disturbed by the material nature, to remain equipoised. It's like, okay. And that's also the feeling of Tatenu Kampam. You know, the verse where where Brahma says, just try to view everything as Krishna's mercy. Like, what's the lesson in this? How am I going to learn from that? That kind of mindset gives us a completely different experience in life, a more enriching, positive experience. Really like that a lot. Thank you very much, Brajaras Baba. Brilliant. Well, we have 5 more valuable minutes left together. How many chances do we have to do this? Let's just take a couple more minutes. Just be a little vulnerable. Tell us something that you've realized or that's on your mind, whatever. Sharing means caring. Madhurisaki, you're a world traveler these days. What's going on out there in the world? What'd you see, hear, feel, think? Who are you with?
This past week, I got to go to London, and it's one of my favorite places because the manor is such a special environment. And I actually took one of my friends to the manor, and they've never been before in that sort of temple setting. And just walking through the forest, they have a Gita forest there, and the atmosphere is just very serene and calming. And I went to the manor almost every day. And something I realized, and my friend also was realizing this, is that when we went there, like all the worries in our mind kind of just left. And we were just able to absorb ourselves in that atmosphere. And my head was empty, even though the world is like continuously going and there's always a problem after another. Just being in that space every day was very calming. And I felt like there aren't many places in the world that offer that sort of environment spiritually that's uplifting and nourishing and also just calming. And I think it's very rare to find a place like that.
Yeah, I like that about Durisaki because we all have that sense of one problem coming after another, I'm sure. And I was thinking, while you said that, if we don't have access to such a forest, because you said it was a Bhagavad Gita forest, that we could enter into the Bhagavad Gita itself. If we have a taste for that and we're able to sit down and take shelter of the Bhagavad Gita, then we're transported into Vaikuntha, which literally means that the worry stops as you realize your higher self. Nice, nicely done. Thank you very much. Okay, we still have 3 valuable minutes. This could change our lives in the next 3 minutes. We could hear from anybody, what realization you've had. You're in a unique situation, because you're in the world, you're already devotees, chanting Hare Krishna, plus you're seeing the world from a unique point of view. So tell us what you see. Madhurisaki.
I had a quick reflection, Marge. So in this morning's program, we quickly discussed why it's important to have a guru and how that can bring us to the ultimate goal, which is Krishna. And I was thinking about how some of the friendships in my life have been so grounding that every time I want to run away or I fall into a pattern of bad qualities, those friendships, especially those that I've made over the years in Krishna consciousness, they've always like brought me back to the main thing. And it just reminded me how the parampara also does the same, but so do our friends that have like good intent.
Yeah, association is so important. If we have somebody who's living our ideal, or we see that they've developed qualities that we can think of them. I have people like that in my life I ask the question, what would such and such do in this situation? That gives me guidance. Like, I know what they do, not what I was just thinking of doing. So let me do what they do. Yeah, we need so much guidance from every side. Any discipline we're in, if you want to be good at it, you have to have guidance and to live a life that's progressive. Really important to have that feature from all sides. That feature of good association on all sides. Try to speak proper English here. Well, thank you very much, everyone, for taking your valuable time. Thanks for the organizers of Youth Jam. I'm unlimitedly grateful to all of you for keeping the vibration going. It's a extremely powerful forum for us to come into and just have the safety of full focus. It's kind of nice too. There's a little screen here, and we know once we come on here, we've got an hour and a half of nonstop transcendental vibration. So it's a shelter for sure. If I may, dear Srila Prabhupada, dear Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Shri Shri Panchatattva, Shri Shri Radha Madan Mohan, Shri Shri Radha Kalachandji, Shri Shri Radha Kirchor Gopinath, Shri Shri Radha Murlidhar, Shri Shri Kishore Kishori. Who am I missing? If you so desire, please bless everyone who joined Youth Jam today, that they will have the power of focus on your holy names during japa. Thank you for considering our request. Om Tat Sat. Everyone agrees with this prayer in whole or in part. Please unmute.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Haribol.
Kripa
Hare
Sindhu
Krishna.
Chapatita Pavani Bhyo Vaishnave Bhyo Namo Namah Ananta Koti Vaishnavi Ki Jai Gaur Premanande Haribol.
Hare Bol.